and welcome. We hereby call this meeting of the Interagency Council for Ending the Achievement Gap to order. And we're very happy to have everyone here. So good afternoon. Today we are going to learn from council members about legislation in the 2024 session that relate to our council's work. And before we begin, I'm going to ask Kari to please go ahead and do the roll call if you would.
Okay, thank you. Connecticut State Colleges and Universities.
Stephen Hegedus, present at Western Connecticut State University, representing Chancellor Cheng.
Department of Administrative Services.
Good afternoon. It's Doug Casey. I'm with the State's Commission for Educational Technology, representing Commissioner Gilman.
Department of Children and Families.
Hi, Superintendent of Schools with DCF. I anticipate Commissioner Hill-Lilly will be joining us shortly. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Shante Hanks with the Department of Housing.
Thank you. Department of Economic and Community Development.
Hi, this is Teko Amaratunu. I'm the Arts Education Manager for the Office of the Arts within DCD.
Thank you. Department of Public Health. Department of Social Services. Judicial Branch. I thought I saw her come in. Judicial Branch. Okay. Office of Early Childhood.
Hello, Maggie Adair. I'm the Communications and Legislative Program Manager here on behalf of Commissioner Bai. Deputy Elena Truworthy will be joining us soon.
Thank you. Office of Policy and Management.
Peter Hopko. I'm a budget specialist within the Budget and Financial Management Division. I work with SDE and I'm here on behalf of Secretary Beckham.
Thank you. State Department of Education.
Thank you, Kari. Commissioner Russell Tucker here, and I think I have a few other members that's also present. John Fresinelli, I believe, is here.
Yes, good afternoon. John Fresinelli, Division Director for School Health, Child Nutrition, and Family Services.
And I think Charlie Kenyon is here as well.
Here.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to go back because I see Judicial Branch. Patricia was waiting in the lobby. So Patricia, do you want to announce yourself from the
Thank
Judicial
you.
Branch?
Good afternoon, everyone. Patricia Nunez. I'm the Regional Manager for the Judicial Branch. Thank you.
And did we miss anyone? Has anyone come in or since we started or miss anyone at this point?
Hi, Kari. It's also Cynthia Sumoyano, Deputy Commissioner of Education.
Hey, Cynthia. Okay. Thank you. I think I'll turn it back over to the Lieutenant Governor.
All right. Thank you, Kari. So we're going to take a quick moment to look at the agenda for today. We just completed opening remarks and roll call, and I'm going to soon seek acceptance of the minutes and review council updates since our last meeting. After our updates, we will then go into the legislative roundtable discussion. And as always, we welcome the active engagement of our council members. So please feel free to jump in with questions or anything that you would like to add relevant to our discussion and mission. And we are then going to look at our next steps and adjourn. So any questions about the agenda? Okay, Seeing none, we're going to move on to the follow-ups from our last meeting. We last met December 12th of last year, and we discussed the continuity of learning in early years, the fatherhood initiative, and electronic benefit transfer benefits, and learned about initiatives focused on the maintenance of technology in schools. The minutes for our December 12th meeting have been circulated in draft for everyone's review. We have not received any edits, so I will ask now if anyone here has any corrections or suggestions that you would like to make at this time. All right, seeing none, are there any objections to the minutes being accepted as final as written? Seeing no objections, the December 12th minutes are hereby accepted as final. Any other questions or updates from our December meeting?
Lieutenant Governor, I just wanted to announce my presence. I had a little trouble signing on. This is Jody Hill-Lilly.
Oh, welcome, Commissioner Akari. Will you note that, please? All right. Well, welcome. So, seeing no other updates, we are going to turn to our roundtable. So I'm going to ask Kari to call on each of our member agencies to see if there is someone who from that agency who would like to share about bills or topics the council should be keeping an eye on. So why don't we start, Kari, with judicial, please?
Okay, let's start with judicial. And we're asking 10 minutes, 15 tops for everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. So I was able to look and identify 4 bills that this group may find of interest that we do want to keep tracking and keep our eye on. The first one is House Bill 5508. That's an act concerning recommendations from the Juvenile Justice Policy and Oversight Committee. So I'll lift up a few key elements of that bill. Firstly, it does establish a gender responsive subcommittee to work in partnership with the Trafficking in Persons Council, right? That TIP, to identify these 4 areas or to work toward these 4 areas. The first is to conduct a landscape analysis and a gap assessment on gender responsive work here in Connecticut. Secondly, it develops a framework for reporting, collecting, and distributing police data on human trafficking for the purpose of generating annual reports. And then lastly, it develops policy and legislative recommendations to address improvements to the continuum of care to youth who do identify as girls and that are impacted by the juvenile justice system, and provide trauma-informed and culturally responsive approaches, services, treatment, and permanency models. And I do highlight this and bring it up to this group because lots of our young people involved with the juvenile justice and perhaps the child welfare system as well are at greatest risk, right, for involvement in human trafficking. The second piece of that bill clarifies that judicial CSSD, DOC, DCF, and the Connecticut State Department of Education work collaboratively to develop a re-entry success plan. And that is for youth who are released from either DOC and or judicial facilities or programs under the jurisdiction of the branch or under contract. And so this re-entry success plan is very in-depth. I'm not going to go through the whole plan itself, but rather lift up pieces, again, that connect to the work that this group is involved with. Specifically that the reentry success plan is going to consider all aspects needed for that youth to successfully re-enter their community, including but not limited to, right, the provision of individualized academic support and the role of school districts in ensuring the provision of academic, vocational, and transitional services. And then it also speaks to connection of youth to both the vocational and workforce opportunities. The other piece of that reentry success plan that I do want to lift up this afternoon ensures that youth being released either have started whenever possible, some job readiness or career training programs, right, that have embedded industry recognized credentials, certifications, or licenses. And I know this group, right, previously have spoken about, you know, again, credentials in industry recognized areas, right? We don't want to be providing our children, right, with items that don't have, right, purposeful use back out in our communities. So those are the highlights that I wanted to lift up. Again, that's House Bill 5508. Is it okay if I move on? The second piece of legislation is Senate Bill 380, an act concerning school discipline. And here the piece that I did want to lift up, and it does have relevance specifically to the judicial branch CSSD, and it revises procedures by which notification is made to superintendents upon the arrest of a student. In the legislation requires any person who is at least 10 years of age, but not less than 21, and who is enrolled as a student, and they're arrested for a violation of section 53-206C, a class A misdemeanor or a felony, other than possession of a firearm described above. Again, it requires the CSSD to provide written report of such arrest to the superintendent of the schools, of that school district in which such person is residing or attending school upon the arrest presentment to the court. So again, here we have our young people right between 10 and 21 being arrested again for those identified arrestable offenses, class A misdemeanor or a felony, and again, requiring written report of that arrest to the superintendent. The next area that I wanted to bring up is House Bill 5506, and that is an act concerning families with service needs. This is an interesting piece of legislation as it is proposing to place family with service needs petitions back in front of the court. And those FWISN, those family with service needs, includes, right, a child who is truant or habitually truant, or who while in school has been continuously and overtly defiant of school rules and regulations. So again, this be interesting, right? A number of years ago, these were taken out of the court. Now again, proposal to loop them back into the court system. And then lastly, there was one other Senate Bill 445. This talks about an act concerning a jobs program for youth impacted by the juvenile justice system. And it contains other elements too, but that's the one that I wanted to bring to this this group's attention. And basically, it is requiring the judicial CSSD and our workforce development boards to develop and implement job programs for youth who have been impacted by the juvenile justice system. And those were the four pieces of legislation I had this afternoon. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Oh, so sorry, Kari, go ahead.
Thank you. Were there any questions? Do we want to ask for questions or just move on to the next presentation?
Well, I
We're
think
going to have.
I think we might well take questions while each are being discussed, because I think that just is more efficient.
Okay. So any questions, and then we're going to move on to education next. Commissioner Russell Tucker.
Thank you, Kari, and Patricia, thank you for this. And I know I'm probably up next, but you got my attention when you were talking about the family with service needs. I was looking at my colleagues and they were raising their eyebrows. As we know, in this group, we've talked about the issue of chronic absence, and to your point that the families with service needs and those changes are there. So I'm putting that in the room that John and Kari, I don't think I know I've not seen that. And so I think we may need to take a closer look, Patricia, to have a conversation. So already I think there's a payoff, Lieutenant Governor, that we're having this conversation here, because there's so many pieces of legislation across with cross-agency impact, and it takes so much just to track everything. So I think this is one, Patricia, that we're certainly going to put on our radar so we can have some conversations about. I don't know if my colleagues, John or Kari, want to add anything to that. But.
Thanks, Commissioner John Fresnelli. Patricia, does it return all of the status offenses back to a families with service needs judicial referral? Truancy, runaway, all of those that were scheduled to be changed?
Yeah, I'm not with 100% certainty on that. Again, like the commissioner said, it's interesting, right? Given that it's a short session, these pieces of legislation are coming through so fast and furious. It's really challenging to keep track of them. And this one in particular just came to my attention just late last week.
Thanks. Could you just give me the number of that one again, the FWISN one?
Yes, that's House Bill 5506, an act concerning families with service needs.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, you're welcome.
So thank you for that. I don't know if there are other questions. If not, I can jump in to talk about where we are.
Sure.
All right, thank you. So the Department of Education, we have a couple of slides just to walk us through where we are. But there's about the Education Committee had about 25 bills that they've had public hearings on. So like Patricia, there's a lot that we're trying to track, but I've highlighted for us today those that we believe, if you can put it in slide mode, Charlie, those that we believe impacts the work of the council or collaboration necessary for the council. So the first one I'll reference is Senate Bill 14, and that's an act assisting school districts in improving educational outcomes. And this particular one actually is addressing a higher ed institution and ed prep programs needing to bolster their current literacy instruction to ensure that our prep programs are assisting our teachers in developing competencies to support literacy development amongst all our students. You've heard a lot, I'm sure, in the press about the science of reading, and we want to make sure that we're covering that. So we're really, this legislation is addressing those competencies of ed prep programs on instruction, scientifically based reading research instruction. So that's what the first one is all about. The next one you've heard us talk about as well is a statewide program that helps low-income students participate in advanced courses that help narrow the achievement gap, of course, by providing opportunities. And so this is certainly a part of the work when we talk about workforce development, creating opportunities for students to explore multiple career pathway options. Certainly one of the pillars of our State Board of Education 5-year strategic plan, and expanding dual credit opportunities and district industry partnerships also play a role in this work. And this is work that we've been invested in, close to $8 million investments to school districts as well as higher ed institutions for students to earn college credits before their high school graduation. And we've seen some progress there. This will certainly help us to make sure we're also focused on students, the different student groups, to make sure that we can continue to grow those numbers. House Bill 14 certainly carries the governor's legislative proposal, to which certainly the department is in full support of the governor's bills. On the next slide, and you've probably heard a lot of conversation as well, and for some of you may be engaged with the issue of, this is an House Bill 5436, an act concerning educator certification. Work that we've actually been doing in our state for a while. Our certification regulations have not been updated since 1998. So I think we'll all agree it's due for an overhaul. Since that time, though, what has been happening is that we've been chipping away at the regulations through statute. And so it is time for us to really take a holistic look. And with that work, I convened the Connecticut Educator Certification Council that met since August. And what is in this proposal is an outcome of a lot of deliberation, a stakeholder group with a lot of interests. And so this is what we see here. But what you're seeing in this legislation is simplifying the pathway to become a teacher, making it and streamlining the process, making it so that it's easier for lifelong career folks in lifelong careers to make teaching a career that they want to jump into. And so we're really pleased to see where we are today. And another big piece of this is establishing a teacher board, a standards board that's going to take this work moving forward, which is really important for us to be looking at. So this is a proposal that's out there that we're watching to see how it moves along. I believe that there's a lot of support just from the concept that this work is really necessary for us to continue to do, and that work is seated here with this particular proposal. A lot in it, but while talking about it and while not a part of this piece of legislation, that the department certainly has worked over the years to streamline the process and allowing flexibilities. And certainly pleased to say for the past 2 years, we've explored flexibilities through emergency certification and enhanced reciprocity. We have just now, there's additional states that we're adding to enhance reciprocity, but really pleased that what we've been doing brought in to count today 968 newly employed educators to Connecticut who were certified in other states by allowing them to quickly obtain an equivalent certification in Connecticut. So that work is happening, even though it's really not listed in this particular legislation, but I wanted to share that as well.
And the Commissioner,
yes.
Commissioner, can I just ask, so that sort of alternative certification process, is that going to help us get more diverse teachers? Because I know the governor is very interested, and all of us should be interested in this, because we have a teaching shortage as it is, and we should be looking for ways to bring more good people into the profession.
Absolutely, Lieutenant Governor, that's a big part of it. So it's not just growing numbers, but it's continuing to diversify our educator workforce, which is really important. And the wider net you cast for folks who are interested to come in the profession, and also the removal of barriers that may be there, that was a big part of the Certification Council's deliberation, and what we're hoping to see here as well. Thank you for that question. Great. The next piece of legislation that I wanted just to talk a little bit about is an act concerning paraeducators. And this really, we're supportive when we think about our paraeducators being such an integral part of the education ecosystem, working closely with teachers and other professionals, provide critical supports to our students with unique and diverse needs. And so this allows the continuation of the support around healthcare needs for paraeducators. And although this is given to the comptroller's office to implement, I really just wanted to lift that up here, that's really something that we believe in as well. And finally, going to the next slide, is an act concerning school discipline, Senate Bill 380, which I know you've heard a little bit about before in another piece of legislation, but I was just going to ask John just to speak a little bit about this here as well in terms of the proposal and what we're doing.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, so this, some of the provisions in Senate Bill 380 include changing the definition of what rises to the level of allowing an out-of-school suspension in our K-2 students. Currently, that threshold is behavior that is of a violent or sexual nature that endangers persons. The request in the legislation is to change that to behavior that causes physical harm. So we've provided some testimony on that specifically. Also has a couple of other requirements if those students are suspended out of school with regard to making a determination around special education services and other services to offer as a result. It also limits the number of days in which an out-of-school suspension can be implemented to 2 days. It's important to note that in our data, the average number of days in that age group that students are suspended is about 1.7, with a standard deviation of also about 1.7. So suffice to say that most of those are already occurring in 2 days or less. There are about 30% that are about 3 days. So we have provided some testimony on that. I think to the commissioner's point, there's currently a lot of work happening with the School Discipline Collaborative. That's a collaborative that the commissioner started in 2017. So there is work around discussion around the definition of violent and sexual nature as it applies to K-2 students. As a matter of fact, the collaborative will be meeting next week to begin the discussions around that. We're going to hear specifically from a half a dozen school districts regarding the behaviors that occurred and the resulting discipline sanctions that were imposed to get to have some conversation between schools, school district leaders, and our school discipline collaborative. So suffice to say that work is ongoing, and we've asked that the collaborative be permitted to sort of complete that work before we change some of the legislation regarding some of that exclusionary discipline.
John and Charlie, you can take the deck down so we can see everyone. See if there are questions. Again, there's a lot happening in this space, but I just really want to highlight these ones that I spoke about. And just one other thing, Lieutenant Governor, by the end of this week, we're putting some information together to see what we've done around diversification of our workforce, our educator workforce. I know we've gone from about 8% up to just recently 11.7% in the 6,000 or 7,000 educators of color. And so we recognize there's still a whole lot more work to do, and addressing the issue of certification is one door that I think we need to go through in order to improve those numbers. But we will be sharing that to see how we're doing and sharing where else we're going in this space as well. So thank you.
So I have a question because I've had constituents ask me about what we are doing with respect to the literacy and early reading efforts that were brought forward by Senator Pat Billy Miller. And the name of the program is escaping me at the moment, but it is a curriculum for teaching reading at the elementary level. And there are a whole lot of suburban towns that want to opt out of that. So what's happening on that front?
Another great question. And we're talking about the right to read legislation that was passed that required the department to approve a curriculum model or programs, which our districts by 2024 is partial implementation, July 1, 2025 is full implementation in order to make sure that all our or instruction for that age group is research-based, scientifically based, and meets the components of reading that we know the research says how the brain works and how our young people learn to read. And so we're in the mode of implementation at this point in time. I'm sure you've read all the papers. There's lots of information back and forth on this, but we're working, as a matter of fact, opposite to this meeting is the Reading Leadership Implementation Council meeting that is charged with working with districts that were not approved for the waiver for which that they required in the waiver, just to clarify, was not to opt out and not do anything. The waiver was that you didn't have to engage one of the approved curricular program or models because you're demonstrating that what you're currently doing actually is similarly research-based and meet the science of reading. So there's a lot of misinformation about that out there, Lieutenant Governor, but that's where we are. And we're working very closely with our districts, providing a lot of professional learning at no cost to help them to make the decisions around ensuring that the instruction that being provided in any curriculum that they're utilizing meets the standard as outlined in the legislation.
So in other words, it's not that you can opt out, it's that your whatever curriculum that you have must be approved.
It must meet that standard that's in legislation. So people think it's like, I don't have to do anything. That was never, that's not the legislation. It's opt out of selecting from the list that we have of approved comprehensive program because they're doing something that's similarly that meets that same standard, and we had to review those.
Okay, so in other words, there are towns that have chosen a curriculum that may not be on the approved list, and you are reviewing those other curriculums.
So that what we're doing is, all right, so we had to approve, we went from 7 to maybe 18 or 19, right? That is approved.
Okay.
And so we got some of those based on districts that submitted their application to us, and we reviewed those. So we reviewed those, and those that were approved got added to the list as well. So that list of approved programs grew based on what we got from the districts that we approved.
Okay. And okay, so basically municipalities were saying, hey, this is our curriculum that we're using. You started with 7 or 8, whatever it was, and now we're up to 18 or 19 of them?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just bring that up because that's generating a lot of conversation amongst municipal leaders, so, okay.
Another thing that we've done as well, out of last session, the legislature gave us like $24 million that is assisting districts with procuring the approved program that they need. Of course, depending on the size of the district, districts are still asking for fiscal support in order to do that, but that's done. I've added an additional $4 million to assist our smaller school districts as well, those with under 1,000 students, so we can add to that. So we work, and also finally working with DAS for consortium pricing so that they can also provide some assistance for what districts need to procure.
Got it. Okay, Kari, it looks like unless anybody has any more questions, I think we can move on to the next.
So for the next Department of Children and Families Commissioner. And then we'll do OEC after that, just to give you a heads up.
Okay, good afternoon again, Lieutenant Bysiewicz and team. Please give me be a little bit patient with me. This is my first meeting, and I didn't realize that this was going to be on the agenda for today. So I did solicit the support of Vinnie Russo, who's going to just run down the legislation that has impact on me. And for context, Vinnie, because he missed the first part of the conversation, the the FWISN bill was raised as a possible concern, and I think just contextualizing that one for us would be really helpful. So I'm just gonna turn it over to Vinny, and then the rest of the team will color in when deemed necessary and appropriate.
Thanks, Commissioner, and thank you, everybody. And sorry for any background noise. I am at the LOB, so I hope you can hear me fine. So, I'll start with the FWISN bill since Commissioner Halili brought it up. So yes, from DCF's perspective, you know, we obviously have concerns with this bill as well. I think we've been down this path before, so I don't want to reiterate anything anybody else has said, but clearly we did not testify, nor do we testify in the FWISN bill last year. So, you know, just so everybody's aware of that. Basically, from what you know, we've been talking with some of our folks that we work on with juvenile justice issues and our partners out there, and we know there are people testifying in opposition to the bill this year, just as they did last year. When the fiscal note did come out last year, we do hit it with a pretty big fiscal note due to the fact that we'd have to hire a bunch of additional staff and consider all new programming for the number of kids and families that might enter into the DCF system if this were to come back. So from our perspective, those are all the issues that kind of give us some extreme apprehension to bringing FWISN back. As far as bills that directly affect the agency, I'll start with our agency bill, Senate Bill 127. It's kind of a laundry list of things that we're looking to do. The first section has to do with kinship foster licensing. We are looking to expedite kin to become foster parents under the federal rule. If a child is placed with a kin, we're able to actually access Title IV reimbursement upon placement rather than upon licensure of that kin placement. So we are using our emergency placement language, our current language. We're repealing that and just using kin foster licensing in place of that, where that placement can occur immediately. We have safety in place as far as doing a home visit and background checks and all that. But really hoping that bill will not only expedite kin becoming licensed homes, but also providing some additional funding to the state from the federal government. Another aspect of that provision is that we are increasing the age of those in the household who need to be background checked from 16 to 18. That is best practice nationwide. There's only a small handful of states that continue to background check and fingerprint minors under 18 years old. Obviously, with the Raise the Age statute legislation that passed over a decade ago, as well as the fact that most children, 16 and 17-year-old who might have a concerning past, would likely be we'd likely be aware of that. So considering how difficult it is for that youth to get fingerprinted with school, sports, work, all those various things, it's just best to come up with get up to the national standards of 18 years old and over for that background check. Another section of that bill has to do with adoption subsidies. So families who adopt youth through DCF can continue to receive a subsidy, particularly for youth who have disability or other significant issues. We found out through an unfortunate circumstance that while the subsidies will follow the child to another adoption, or a subsidized guardianship subsidy will follow the child to another subsidized guardianship, the statute was silent about subsidized adoptions and adoption following that to a subsidized guardianship. I know that sounds a little nuanced, but it was nuanced enough to create a problem. So it's simply closing a loophole in state law. So that way, the important thing is the money will follow the child and will continue to stay and to support that child's needs. We're also looking to make some technical changes to our urgent crisis center language, which are pretty minimal. We're looking to amend our DCF record confidentiality statute, so that way DPH can license our Solnet hospital. There was when DPH was licensing Solnet originally, we hit a little hiccup with confidentiality, so we're clearing that up. We also discovered that the statute that authorizes DCF to hire police officers was repealed when juvenile justice transferred to CSSD. We've been operating under that for quite a few years. It came to light through a FBI audit. So we are providing a statute to allow us to have our police officers who serve a number of duties for us here at the office, at our office. And that is the bulk of that bill. The other bill we're doing is our Senate Bill 125 on our identified adoptions. We worked very closely with private adoption agencies and the probate court administrator's office on this language. It's really just updating all the identified adoption language that currently exists in statute. It's been in effect since 1997, hasn't changed since then. And once this passes, we'll have to update our adoption regulations in accordance with the law. Those are our two agency bills. I'll mention one last bill I was just meeting with Rep. Curry about. There is an education bill, Senate Bill 381 on mandated reporters. We've worked with the teachers, the superintendents, and parents on trying just to tweak the mandated reporter laws a little bit. Educated professionals make by far the most of our care line calls, which are reporting abuse and neglect. However, they have the lowest substantiation rate of under 3% because of the law, they have zero ability to do any sort of questioning or determining if abuse or neglect has occurred. If they see something on a child, a bruise, a scrape, they can't even ask if a child fell down off their bike. They just immediately call it in. And so that's led to a lot of issues as far as unnecessary investigations that turn out to be absolutely nothing. So we're hoping to these small little tweaks as far as giving teachers the ability to ask a few questions before a call is made and putting back good faith language in for teachers not to make a report or mandated reporters not to make a report in general will help kind of offset some of the trends that we've been seeing. Those are the key bills that we're following right now. Clearly, we're working on a number of other pieces of legislation, but I'm sorry I joined late. I hope that covers what was expected.
That was good, Bill. Bill. Who's Bill? Vincent. Vinny. I was like, who's Bill? I don't know where that came from. Thank you, Vinny. That was perfect.
Thanks.
Are there any questions? Okay, then if we could go on to Office of Early Childhood and then DAS after that.
Great, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Elena Trueworthy, I'm the Deputy Commissioner of the Office of Early Childhood. I'm happy to be here with several of my colleagues today. So Maggie Adair, in charge of everything communications and legislation. Eloisa Melendez, leading up our work with the Blue Ribbon Plan, and Kristen DeLucia, our legislative and administrative advisor. So Eloisa, if you can share the slides that we have. I'm going to start big picture with some of the work and planning that the agency has been doing, and then lead us into our specific details and conversation about bills this session. All right. So starting big picture, as I think you all know, we have been engaged in and under the governor's leadership, created a Blue Ribbon Plan for childcare. So this is our 5-year strategic roadmap for our agency and the work. And there are 4 goals of which we are working under. So looking to increase and support our workforce and quality. So really looking at the businesses across our state, ensuring that our programs are stable and our workforce is stable and growing. Goal 2 is around equitable and affordable access, right? And really thinking about the families, what they need for their children, how they have access to high quality childcare, especially for the infants and toddlers, and ensuring that access is equitable across our state. Goal number 3 is around systems. We'll talk a lot around systems and the proposed bills today as well. But systems is really around the structure of which we are able to partner with and support our programs and how our infrastructure is in place. And of course, goal number 4 is around funding. Next slide. So we wanted to show this slide because it is about equity and access. And so it just puts real numbers to our words, right, that we're saying. And so if we were to be able to increase access for families who are at 75% of the state median income. So for a family of 3, that's about a family making about $83,000 per year. They would be able to have and save and have access to $25,000 more to be able to invest in their family, invest in a new home, invest in their state, and cover their expenses. And so these are really important actions and movements. Next slide. And some of our latest work is around looking at Connecticut-specific data on the return on investment. So I won't go through this, but you can read that the numbers are really startling. They really show that the early investments really pay off with a dividend of 7.4 to 1 benefit to cost ratio. And, you know, if our investments in our blue ribbon plan across 5 years, where we would see 15,000 new working moms joining the workforce, and we know that these are really important issue areas. Next slide. So we'll get into now more of the specific budget pieces. In the governor's bill, you know, under goal around systems, we really wanted to start to look at how is our infrastructure supporting the success of our early childhood programs? And so in the governor's bill is the proposal for Early Start Connecticut. So this is a really seismic shift in the way we would do business here in childcare across our state. So this is calling for combining of our 3 major childcare funding streams. They're called child daycare, school readiness, and state Head Start supplement. So currently the way that it works is we'll have one childcare provider. They're getting all these different funding streams. Each of these funding streams have their different eligibility requirements, different reporting requirements, different applications, different ways in which we pay, you know, so they're managing or trying to manage, right? And it makes it very difficult, a sustainable business and high quality services and supports. And so this would combine all of those 3 into one funding stream that really looks to streamline the system, right? One way of paying, one set of reports, one set of applications and eligibility. It would reduce the burden on providers for all of the things that I just said. Plus, we're really looking to pay upfront and pay by classroom so that it increases the stability of the programs that are supporting our children and families. On the flip side, we know that our system of childcare is very confusing for families. Families don't know where to go for help, how to access, what they're eligible for. And so by combining all of these 3, it would simplify the program for families, and it would greater meet family and community needs, with communities doing a community needs assessment, identifying, you know, what's needed at the local level and being able to share that data and information up to us at the state level. Next slide. So that's a really big piece this legislative session. Some of the other things, yeah, you can just take down the slides. Some of the other pieces that we'll talk about, and I'll hand it over to Maggie in just a moment, is around TriShare, which is a model to be implemented in the New London County area. TriShare is asking businesses to come to the table to have a role in supporting the children and families and their workforce with childcare. So TriShare comes out of Michigan. It is a model in which 1/3 of the payment is paid by the business, 1/3 of the payment is paid by families, and 1/3 is paid by the state. And so it's a shared cost model. Some other additional language is around the incubator pilot. This is a really innovative model that is being first, kind of New Britain is going to be the first ones out of the gate with getting this up and running. But it is where family childcare providers who usually can only operate in their home can come in under a shared space of a facility, get the business supports, the training and technical assistance, and open their business under this shared facility. And so the call for this in some of the bills is to, right now it's just only open to 6 current cities. So expanding that to statewide, allowing more than 1 per community to operate as well. For the Office of Early Childhood, we have some, it does add a burden to our licensing staff because they will be required to go through new licensing process. In addition, there are proposals around increasing Care for Kids, which is our subsidy, up to 65% of state median income. So back to that chart, just how important it is to expand access for families to affordable care. Maggie, I'll hand it over to you to add.
Great, thanks, Elena. And the governor's bill just is a House Bill 5051. So if people want to look it up. That bill has been voted out of committee and was referred to appropriates because it has a modest fiscal note on it for some additional staffing to help with moving from grants to contracts. Right now we have school readiness is a grant program and our child daycare is a grant contract. That's just silly. We want to have them all contracts, a much better way to function. I will say about both the TriShare and the incubator model, there's seems to be interest among both the executive branch and in the legislative branch. The incubator bill is in 3 different vehicles. It's in a commerce bill, a Senate Bill 249. It's an education bill 5346, and then the governor's bill. And so we are all agreement with the advocates around some language. So we make sure that this language gets reconciled at the end, and so that we're all in agreement. I don't think that's going to be a problem. TriShare, again, is in the governor's bill. It also just came out in the House Bill 5002. They apparently are interested in TriShare as well, so that's great to hear. There's more extensive language in that bill. So those are 2 pieces of 2 models that are innovative and that seem to have interest across among a lot of people. Our agency bill, Senate Bill 152, it has 4 sections. I'll just highlight one section that I think is really important. It is requiring that all licensed childcare settings, whether they're family childcare homes or childcare centers, allow birth to 3 providers into the setting to work with the child. We've had a few instances since COVID where that has not been the case. And so we just think this is very important that children receive birth to 3 services in their natural environment, whether it's in their home, whether it's in a childcare setting, whether it's in a park. So we just are very proud of that proposal. So those are the 2 primary goals of the agency and the governor's bill. There, of course, are always other bills from the legislators and advocates, and I'll just highlight a few. House Bill 5002 just came out last night, and that is addressing language that was in passed last year, establishing an early care and education fund. We are watching this language. It would create a commission within the legislative branch and then made up of different entities, including the OEC and members of the Early Childhood Cabinet. Definitely watching this bill. Includes the TriShare language, and it has language around a wage supplement program for childcare providers. That bill just came out, so it will have a public hearing next week. There is Senate Bill 5. That was voted out of the Education Committee this week and has been JFS to appropriates. And that would create another priority group within the Care for Kids program. The original language had it as children enrolled and eligible for baby bonds. The new language is that this would be eligible for children enrolled in Medicaid. We are exploring what that change in language actually means. So stay tuned. That just came out with JFS language yesterday. And then there's two bills that were put forth by, I'd say, the advocates and legislators that are currently now in approps. They've been sent there, but they may likely be included in a vehicle. And so that is about requiring all unexpended school readiness and child daycare funds to go into that early childhood fund. We are having discussions, obviously, around that language. And then there is another bill, Senate Bill 286, that would make another priority group within the Care for Kids program for childcare workers. Again, it's complicated. We're having some further discussions within, but definitely watching these bills. And that, I think, is what we have so far. Just a lot of early childhood bills this session. A couple others that are more minor. And I will close there. Elena, do you have anything to add?
Any questions? Okay. I believe DAS is next, and then we'll do housing and then OPM.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Obviously, DAS as an agency is tracking a lot of different legislation. There are 4 bills I wanted to share with you that are most pertinent to this group. Senate Bill 2 concerning artificial intelligence, and 3, which is consumer protection. Both of these address an issue we've talked in this group about, and obviously our Commission for Educational Technology is very concerned with making sure that students have access to computers, support, and a connection, a high-speed connection when they go home to do their homework and continue learning. So both SB 2 and 3 include provisions that would promote affordable broadband connectivity programs to make sure that those students have a healthy connection at home. SB 3 goes so far as to provide a hotline for helping people get connected. So these provisions are directly aligned with the Commission's State Digital Equity Plan, which is at ct.gov/digital equity. We are hoping to get funding this fall to actually implement that plan. Yeah, again, those two bills really support the broader definition of digital equity, and this goes beyond education. We're talking about connecting all households, making sure that everybody has access to affordable broadband. I'll talk about this in the next slide as well. And then Senate Bill 5 concerning school resources addresses the use of AI in schools. We've testified on, provide written testimony and spoken testimony on these, and obviously in favor of making sure that both teachers can use emerging technologies like AI effectively, and making sure that school leaders understand the proper management of student data and records, especially with a keen eye to identifying and eliminating bias. The last bill that I want to mention is HB 5446, very long title. This goes back to ensuring that all of our households in Connecticut, especially people who are living in the most disenfranchised groups, have access to affordable broadband. HB 5446 would it really calls for a plan. There's no implementation yet, but a plan to look at subsidizing broadband. And importantly, this is in the context of a federal relief program called the Affordable Connectivity Program that currently provides a subsidy to 186,000 Connecticut households. We know kids are in a lot of those households. And so when funding ends, because Congress has not renewed that appropriation, we know when the funding ends for that, most likely the end of April, beginning of May, that there will be some disconnected kids too. So there's a connection between the state level draft legislation and the termination of that federal program to support affordable broadband. And that's all I have. If there are no questions or comments, I'm happy to turn it back to you, Kari.
Can we go to the previous slide that talks about promotion of affordable broadband? So what does that mean? Does that mean that there's free or affordable broadband that people don't know about and you're trying to get the message out? Or what exactly does that mean?
That's exactly right. Yeah, okay. That's exactly right, Lieutenant Governor. One of the things that we discovered in designing our state digital equity plan, we talked with a dozen focus groups, surveys from 7,000 residents. A lot of what we discovered is that there are more affordable broadband programs between $10 and $30 a month for decent connection that people just don't know about. Talking with residents and saying what gets in your way of getting online and engaging in telehealth learning, remote work, and they said, boy, I just can't afford it. They didn't realize that there were some more affordable programs out there. So a big barrier with this is just awareness, and it's also trust. So not in this legislation per se, but in our broader plan, is to look at sort of leaning into those community partners and engaging with them, thinking about neighborhood revitalization zones, your local libraries, making sure that those entities are all equipped with the information that they can get those residents online. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. I mean, it would seem to me that public schools ought to be all over that, making sure that in addition to community renewal teams and all of that, those trusted local partners, but it seems to me that schools ought to be hyper focused on that, making sure that the parents know how to get that broadband.
Yeah, well, we have communicated a bunch of resources to our school leaders, and in partnership with the Department of Education, made sure that superintendents are aware as well. So we know firsthand. We don't know how many kids live in households that depend on these subsidies and these low-cost programs. We just, obviously, for privacy purposes, we don't have that information. But if we can push that out through our schools, obviously that's a really important lever.
Thank you.
Commissioner Russell Tucker.
Thank you, Kari, and certainly appreciate the collaboration, Doug, that we have in this. I also wanted to add just commentary on Senate Bill 5 that you mentioned that required for us to develop professional learning for educators around utilization of AI as part of instruction in classroom. Our testimony, specifically, we gave language so they would include that this be certainly done in consultation with the Connecticut Commission for Education Technology. I'm not sure that they're going to put that in, but needless to say, we recognize that that is work that we should be doing together, and so have that commitment, whether that appears in legislation or not. But that was a part of our written testimony, was for them to include you, your organization, as a part of the work that we would be doing and working together. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions, we'll go to Office of Policy Management, and then Housing, and then CSCU.
Hey, hello everyone, and Lieutenant Governor. This is my first meeting representing OPM, and I was not aware that this was the topic for today, so I don't have any presentation for you all. But on the topic of legislation, I think we would at OPM would approach this from what is being proposed in the governor's budget. A lot of there's a whole section in the governor's budget introduction on equity in the budget. And, you can find that in the introduction if you're interested. I'd touch on a few investments that really connect with the learning gap. We're making significant investments in early childhood services, approximately 43.3 million, which is on top of 68.8 million that was already assumed for FY25. And that will do things like expand Care for Kids eligibility, provide funding for additional pre-K slots in public schools, and helping childcare workers accessing health insurance and other state benefits. We're proposing to continue funding for school meals. We're proposing to continue the Learner Education and Attendance Program, LEAP, which is a nationally recognized program which connects disconnected youth with public school, back with this education. And then, with regards to, some of the other pieces of legislation that have been brought up by other agencies today, obviously, we'll be monitoring them, that legislation, particularly from a budget perspective. And I'm sure it will be relevant when we get to negotiations with the legislature.
So I would suggest, Kari, when's our next meeting? We don't have your mic on. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's June 18th.
Okay, so that's after the session ends. So Peter, I would just ask that you go ahead and give us some supplemental information, because there are a whole lot of things that affect equity and education that the governor has put into his budget. And we should, you mentioned a few, school meals, free school meals, the 43+ million for early childhood education, LEAP funding. There's so many, gun violence prevention, et cetera. I think we should include that summary. And if you could send that to Kari, I think that would be really great. And then we can certainly do a debrief on what actually passes after we get past May 7th and can assess the delightfulness of what has been passed.
I'll make sure to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next, if there are no other questions, we'll go to housing.
Hi, good afternoon. Like Peter, I think that it's probably best for us to come in June and then do a debrief. In my current role, the work that I'm doing with OEC obviously relates to education, but I would venture to say housing relates to everything because of its importance. Without housing, stable and permanent housing, you're just not productive in any way at any level of education, obviously. But currently, I can't speak to legislation that the Department of Housing is proposing per se. But in June, we'll see after the session has closed what legislation relates or has dovetailed.
Thank you, Shante. And next, we'll go to CSCU.
Thank you, Kari. Can you hear me well? Mm-hmm. So there are a few bills that I'm going to go over briefly today that tend to our topic and have been offered in testimony on behalf of Connecticut State Colleges and Universities. That Chancellor Cheng has testified before Higher Ed and Employment, but it is linked to these broader issues of access and equity. As in 2019, the General Assembly passed legislation to establish a debt-free community college program that's been in effect since the fall of 2020. Since then, the Connecticut State Education, under pledge to Advanced Connecticut, or PACT as we refer to it. For the current 23-24 year, PACT has provided more than 21,500 awards to more than 13,000 students as an accessible opportunity to the Connecticut State Community College. And to date, PACT has provided nearly $23 million in overall financial assistance to our students. Under HB 5238, this is looking to increase the amount of minimum awards under the debt-free community college system. Specifically, part-time semester awards, so many of our students need, of $150 would be increased to $500, and full-time semester awards of $250 would increase to $1,000. If these changes were applied, the cost of minimum grant awards would increase to $9.4 million approximately, which is an increase of about 6.9. In addition to that, there are other acts expanding debt-free community college programming, SB 204, and also HB 5239, the Connecticut Collegiate Awareness and Prep Program, CONCAP, is part of the Connecticut Minority Advancement Program and is a great resource that provides academic support services to Connecticut's underachieving minority middle, high school, and undergraduate college students. I'm now at Western Connecticut, and we have one here, and it creates serves a majority of the local communities on pathways from middle, high school to college. So we're supporting that act to increase and the expansion of CONCAP to all of our institutions. And another one that focuses on access and equity, Senate Bill 109 is an act to modify the Connecticut automatic admissions program. This is already seen to be a strong step towards educational equity. We've seen upward trends in the CAP applicants going up from almost about 70%, or 3,200 students. At the moment, as it's written in this SB 109, this legislation would change the requirements from a minimum class rank percentile to a minimum GPA for students to qualify for admission to participating institutions of higher education. We support this. It's a way to increase equity and access for students. In addition, there's much work going on in our EPPs across our 4 campuses, particularly in our minority educator work, looking closely at teacher residency models in collaboration with the State Department of Ed and other entities to really attend to some of the teacher shortages that we have, particularly in special education here in Connecticut, which I've reported out at this council in the past. So there's quite a bit of work going on that links to our work here and trending to closing the achievement gap. There are a few others, but those are the ones that are relevant. So my comments, any questions? And Lieutenant Governor, if I may just take one more moment. In my new position now, I'm now the provost at WestCon, and so I'm no longer at Southern, and I'm working with Chancellor Cheng. I've really enjoyed participating in this council. I think he designates closely related to teacher preparation and education as well. So we'll be communicating with your office very soon, but over the past 3 or 4 years, I've really enjoyed being on this council, and I'll stay tuned. I'm not going far. I'm in Danbury, not New Haven.
Got you. Well, thank you so much. And I think you might be able to have more contact with my former chief of staff, Adam Joseph, in that role. So good for you.
Yeah, I know. Adam. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, are there any other council members or agencies that would like to report out in the roundtable? Just want to make sure I didn't skip anyone.
Yeah, I don't know, DECD or DSS, DPH, I think were the only other ones that,
Yeah, I don't, DECD does not have a report, and I don't see DPH or DSS here.
oh, no problem. All right, well, seeing no other agencies that want to report, I want to thank all of our presenters for identifying the important legislation that is being considered. We appreciate that. And we, at this time, are going to go over our next steps. So please feel free to follow up if you have other topics that you would like to add to our council agenda. Our quarterly meetings are June 18th, 2024, September 17th, 2024, and December 17th, 2024. For our June meeting topic, we intend to invite DCF to provide updates on the Kids Cabinet that has newly been formed and any of the work that is related to our council's goal. And Kari and Christine will be working with DCF on the topic. I would also suggest that maybe we do a legislative update, since we've taken this time to listen to everything that was before the legislature, and I think it would be appropriate to have a roundtable on what's happened as well. So that might be something that we could also do at our next meeting in June.
We'll
and
make sure it's done.
Okay, thank you, Christine. And just want to highlight for our council, since all of you have gotten to know Christine Jean-Louis, my general counsel, she has been nominated to the Superior Court by the governor, so fingers crossed she will be successful, and we will miss her, but we're excited about her new next chapter. So congratulations, Christine. We're all very proud of you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Also, just want to remind people that if you have any suggestions for guest speakers who are doing work related to our council and think they would be good to hear from, please do let Christine know. And I'm wondering if anyone has any questions or comments before we adjourn. I am not seeing any. So just want to say thank you to all of you for the good work you are doing. Governor Lamont and I really appreciate your time and efforts, and we'll look forward to seeing you during this busy legislative session. And I hereby adjourn our council for ending the achievement gap, and see everybody next time. Thank you so much.